Hello and welcome. My name is Joseph Presler. I'll be presenting today, is agricultural exceptionalism still relevant in today's food industry, or are we entering a post-exceptional era in the United States? This is an important question, but first we need to ask ourselves, what is agricultural exceptionalism? Well, it's defined as, per scholar Susan Schneider and others, agricultural exceptionalism is a legal exception used in agricultural industry to protect the farming way of life from social, health, labor, and safety laws that most other industries must follow. Another term you'll be hearing through this presentation is post-exceptionalism, defined as a shift in policy that was once seen as exclusive to one industry, now applying to multiple industries regarding workers, wages, and environmental standards. We'll tackle such next in this presentation by looking at food and agriculture as an industry and what requires different legal treatment compared to other sectors. We will first look at right to farm laws. The U.S. protects farmers, cattle and produce, etc., from being sued over standard agriculture practices. These laws shield farmers from nuisance lawsuits, which residents near farms often file. They also, as in term grandfathered in, protect long-established farms from legal actions such as laws prevent farmers from being sued for noise, odor, and other standard practices. While these right to farm laws such prevent farmers from being sued for noise, odor, and other standard practices, some experts suggest these laws could be expanded to address environmental impacts and air pollution better, as an example in the Clean Air Act of 1990. Next, we'll look at the food industry. From production to distribution, has been treated in a distinctly different way throughout history. The food industry has shifted from local markets and interstate commerce to a technologically driven system. Now, food production sources ingredients from around the world, unlike in the past, when the federal regulations limited what could be produced and how much could be produced. The way the food industry from production to distribution has historically been treated differently, we look at transportation improvements have also expanded globally, giving consumers more options and enabling a more direct-to-customer approach. These changes began around the late 1960s, driven by demand for longer shelf life and technological advances. Next, we'll look at the legal framework for food laws from before the 1980s to today. The Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906, the Food Safety Modernization Act of 2011, and Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points, known as HACCP. With experience across produce, seafood, and meat and poultry industries, as well as food service HACCP, state inspections, the Department of Health, and the FDA. The Pure Food and Drug Act was signed in law on June 30th, 1906, and aimed to protect customers by prohibiting the manufacture, sale, or transportation of misbranded or adulterated food, drugs, and medicines in interstate commerce. This law alone, with concurrently passed Meat Inspection Act, set the foundation for our current modern-day Food and Drug Administration, known as the FDA, and federal consumer protection standards. Next, we'll look at the Food Safety Modernization Act of 2011, known as the most significant current reform of U.S. food safety regulations. This led to a shift from reactive to proactive approaches to prevent foodborne illnesses and further gave the FDA new authority to regulate food production from farm to table. This added a preventative approach shared across the global food chain using hazard analysis and critical controls as structure, while also first standards established for the produce safety and food supplier verification. Instead, farms, restaurants, and nonprofits are exempt from this groundbreaking food safety initiative, while noting that this didn't change the food inspection services through the United States Department of Agriculture for meat, poultry, and egg products. To look as such, we need to look at the hazard analysis and critical control points, which was developed in the 1960s when the United States was preparing to send astronauts to the moon and provide safe food in space. NASA and Pillsbury were contracted to develop the first ever HACCP program to eliminate failures in processing procedures. A HACCP plan looks at possible chemical, physical, and biological contamination that could occur during the manufacturing process. Such was the central portion of the Food Safety Modernization Act of 2011 as to require for the first time all to implement a food safety plan based on preventative controls. While there's not just one type of a HACCP plan, there are differences in HACCP across different industries. For example, food service restaurants in HACCP. These plans focus on restaurant menus and kitchen processes, highlighting the journey from raw materials to cooking. They emphasize the temperature danger zone to preventative foodborne illnesses and require record and keeping. Compliance with State Department of Health inspections is ensured, and the plans are reviewed annually. Where when you have the Food and Drug Administration Department and Health and Services, FDA HACCP is mainly identical to the management system such as food service, in which food safety is addressed through the analysis and control of biological, chemical, and physical hazards. Instead, the FDA is more focused on raw material production, procurement, and handling through to manufacturing, distributing, and the consumption of the finished product. These are more directive to the industries of dairy grade A, juices, retail, and seafood HACCP. Some laws treat agricultural and food industries differently from others, highlighting a clear inequality. Poultry Products Inspection Act of 1957 mandates continuous inspection of poultry products for quality and accurate labeling in interstate commerce. Such enforcement was granted to the USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Services and is still in place today. This ensured that poultry is processed under sanitary conditions and that all labels are accurate and comply with pre-market approval labeling requirements. While the Meat Industry Act of 1906 established the first sanitary standards for meat processing and banned the adulteration, also known as mislabeling, of meat products sold across state lines, giving the government authority to inspect from livestock to slaughter to further processing. Such then, the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act of 1906 and amended in then 1938, the oversight of the food, drug, and cosmetics products was established to ensure public safety. The 1906 Act prohibited adulteration and mislabeling, while the 1938 Act expanded the FDA authority by requiring food additives and colorings to be proven safe before use. So what are the differences, you might ask, between the USDA and FDA? FDA regulates various products, mainly produce, dairy, seafood, and processed foods, focusing on labeling and nutrition with health claims plus as U.S. foods imports. It also relies on state health departments for annual audits and third-party inspections under the Food Safety Modernization Act, compared to the U.S. Department of Agriculture Food Safety Inspection Services, who oversees the safety of poultry, beef, eggs, and catfish. The USDA Food and Nutrition Services also administers SNAP, Supplementary Nutrition Assistance Program. while the USDA has a more hands-on approach to inspections and pre-market labeling. It conducts on-site inspections daily. Knowing now the laws and statutes involved with farms, how about right to farm laws from farm to table? Right to farm laws, while in most 50 states today, these laws protect agricultural farmers and operators from lawsuits for nuisances caused by odor and such farming noises, while also overriding local zoning and public health policies to allow commercial agriculture, protects farmers' investments, while many might see it as pollution to areas with water and air, leading to health concerns from nearby agricultural operations. Where farm to table, these two connect in a way that right to farm laws protect farmers, leading to the movement of farm to table. As this movement seeks to expand the healthy aspects of local farmers and locally grown produce, it emphasizes sustainability. These large-scale commercial farmers trying to promote the movement could be seen as using protective laws solely in favor of agriculture, when the movement was meant to encourage smaller operations and sustain smaller farming for environmental benefits. Continuing further, reflecting on the evolution from old laws to today's global legal landscape, agricultural laws have changed the platform we have today. Whereas the Agricultural Act of 1938 required Congress to update the legislation every 5 years to manage surplus acreage for farmers, ensuring pricing stability and address other issues. This also preserved a key conservation act, the Soil Conservation and Domestic Aliment Act of 1936, which paid farmers to reduce crop yields and conserve soil, as such to prevent dust bowls and soil erosion. Recent legal updates have focused on enhancing regulations within the agricultural and food sectors. Since 1938, many amendments have expanded the scope of the Food, Drug, Cosmetic Act to address current public health challenges and scientific advances. For example, the Food Additives Amendment of 1958 required manufacturers to evaluate the safety of new food additives before marketing and introduced a pre-market approach. The Nutrition Labeling and Education Act of 1990 standardized nutrition labeling, making information more accessible to the public. The Food Quality Protection Act of 1996 amended the Food, Drug, Cosmetic Act with stricter health-based standards for pesticide residues on raw agriculture products. The Food Safety Modernization Act of 2011 shifted the FDA's focus from responding to foodborne illnesses to prevent them. It granted the FDA additional authority, including mandatory recall power, increased inspection frequency, and the ability to enhance HACCP preventive controls throughout the food supply chain. It also enhanced activities such as water activity in agriculture, soil amendments, worker hygiene in accordance with good manufacturing practices, and the regulation and setting of standards for animals entering into agricultural growing areas. The U.S. influence on global food supply chains and its effects on improving food regulations, GFSI, and the FSMA 2011 with third-party audits. The Global Food Safety Initiative, GFSI, is a private organization that develops food safety benchmarks. Although it isn't a law like FSMA, its standards help organizations comply with FSMA's third-party certification requirements for foreign supplier and verification programs. The benchmark includes annual certifications to maintain adherence to FSMA's preventative controls and hazards analysis principles. While FSMA sets regulatory requirements, GFSI encourages companies to meet or exceed international standards. International standards, commonly known as Codex standards, are guidelines and regulations that help ensure the quality and safety of food products worldwide. Codex Athanasius and how the U.S. participation in maintaining Codex standards. The Codex Athanasius Commission, established in 1963 by the FAO and the WHO, focuses specifically on food standards. The objective is to protect consumer health and ensure fair practices in international trade. With food products that are safe and wholesome for consumption for global trade, one is to follow the US FDA and USDA standards. Still, it also provides international guidance on food hygiene, additives, pesticides, and veterinary drugs that may be found in foods, as well as contamination, labeling, and the same inspections and certifications. These, though, are voluntary recommendations. If a country imposes stricter codex rules, it must provide scientific evidence to support its dispute with trade. Next, we need to understand how U.S. law and codex standards work together. The Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act of 1947 ensured accurate pesticide labeling and registration. The Federal Environmental Pesticides Control Act of 1972 amended FIFRA to protect public health and the environment better, requiring manufacturers to demonstrate that their products do not cause unreasonable adverse effects, and transferring authority to the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. The EPA also regulates air emissions under the Clean Air Act, but it also determined the large animal feeding operations do not require permits for pollution emissions. Instead, the EPA focuses on regulating concentrated animal feeding operations under the Clean Air Act due to their significant discharges that can harm public health and air quality. This new era of global availability emphasizes a complete approach to global food safety beyond federal inspections and audits. From firsthand experience with these regulatory changes, food safety has improved significantly since 1996, benefiting the industry. While a single global standard has not yet been established, progress is evident through the Food Safety Modernization Act and the rise of the third-party certification schemes under the Global Food Safety Initiative, including Safety Quality Food, British Retail Consortium, and FSC 22000. With increased demands from the government and customers, various standards have emerged, such as the National Organic Program under the USDA and sustainability certifications like the Maritime Steward Council, MSC, and HALA. These incentives enforce sustainability standards that exceed government regulations and the Global Codex standard. Is agricultural exceptionalism still alive and thriving today, or has it come to an end, or is it quietly fading away? First, who is involved in exceptionalism? Stakeholders in manufacturing and food processing companies can be categorized into internal and external groups based on their exceptionalism. Internally, this group includes investors and capital interest. On the other hand, employees such as farmers, packers, and logistics operations staff are vital to addressing well-being and critical social rights issues within the industry. Additionally, the retail and food service sectors, along with the public sector, serve as end users of manufacturing products. These essential stakeholders also play a significant role in promoting health and wages, ensuring transparency in processes, in influencing the market choices available to consumers. Instead, how do they all intertwine with each other when it comes to exceptionalism? Farmers to manufacturing to retail circle of food. In conclusion, evidence suggests that exceptionalism is present at the federal level today, particularly within the supply chain, which spans from farmers to retailers. Food production is facing significant challenges, exacerbated by pushback against H-2A programs and various workforce issues. The H-2A program allows U.S. employers, including farmers, to hire foreign workers for temporary positions, such as planting and harvesting. However, it does not cover food processing jobs or year-round employment. Additionally, government policies on hiring foreign workers are being delayed due to border restrictions. As the labor force continues to shrink, employers are increasingly turning to automation in farming and manufacturing. Factors such as low wages and poor working conditions are driving workers away from these roles. Furthermore, consumer demand for sustainability is driving changes that governments are slow to regulate or even discuss. It will only be until consumers take a greater interest in the origins of their food that there will be significant changes to industry food laws.